should be live. Welcome back, nerds and turds, to another live stream repair. I am Barefoot, and this is another live stream repair, as I said. So we've got 8 HomePods that we're going to try to get through here today, with a wide range of issues, actually. Let's take a look at what we've got. First up from Marco with some fast popping, and then Bryan with a standard no power, then Nick with death farts, and then Alex with another fast popping issue, Peter with no power, also Lex with no power, and then Serhii. We are going to do some maintenance on 2 of Serhii's. So, let us open up Marco's HomePod. Let us open up a beverage, and we will get started. Jeff was saying, talking about the teardown of the new HomePod. I can't wait, man. I've got 3 showing up. I've got 1 that I ordered directly from Apple that should be shipped and delivered tomorrow. I've got 1 for order pickup at my local Best Buy. And then I've got a 3rd one that Apple support is giving me to replace one of my OGs that had an issue. So I'm not too worried about, well, I mean, like, I want to be able to take it apart and put it back together without breaking it, but I'm not so worried that, like, oh, it's my only one, and, you know, if I break it, then I'm out of any new OG HomePod to play with. Not necessarily the case, but I'm hoping it will all be worth it. I wanted to get 3 for the main reason being, hold on, let's see here. You need to change your stream resolution? Oh, that's funny. It's set to low latency right now. That shouldn't be a big deal. As I was saying, the reason why I got 3 of the new generation HomePods is I plan on taking one apart, and I also wanted to have a stereo pair of the new ones to try and also compare against the old OGs. I didn't want to just do a side-by-side of one of each. I wanted to do like the full balls to the wall cooked beans comparison of like the best they can offer, which is stereo pair. So worst case, if I happen to break that other one doing the teardown, then we won't be out of a functional stereo pair of the new set. And so far, nobody that I can find has published any teardown of this new HomePod yet. So my breath has been held slightly since yesterday, and now it's being held even more now. And I'm oh man, if I'm the first person to like publish a video of the insides of this, it's not much, but that's a hell of an achievement to me, is to like be the first at something, especially in today's day and age. Anyways, here we've got our power cable. We're going to go ahead and check our symptoms here, get it plugged in and powered on. And while that's booting up, I'm going to reread the email here from Marco. So, they originally reached out to me saying, I have 2 HomePods, but one is suffering from the popping issue. Unfortunately, I live outside the US. So I asked, how loud is the popping? Because I want to know more than just it's popping, because that alone is not always necessarily a sign that there's an issue. My phone's going off. Who's bugging? Oh. Anyways, so I wanted to get more info on that, and they said it's a fast popping, and they actually sent me a video of it. So let's go ahead. So it's turned on. It sounds okay. Maybe the bass is a little weak in that. Yeah, I'm kind of expecting to find a crapped out subwoofer speaker after hearing that. I'm hoping not. But let's get it taken apart and find out what's going on the inside, yeah? So anyways, about the new HomePod. I was taking a closer look at the side-by-side photo that compares the OG to the V2. And I noticed some things. It looked like perhaps the top basket now no longer screws into the frame of the pod, but it now, and there's separate screws that hold the subwoofer in. With the new one, it looks like the screws that hold the basket down are also the screws that hold the subwoofer down. Fundamentally, the design looks the same. You're going to be opening it probably from the top, just like we do with the OGs, and you're going to be undoing a drawstring to pull the mesh down, pull off the basket, pull out the subwoofer. I don't know, and obviously it's pretty much impossible to tell just from the one X-ray image alone, if hang on. I don't know, and I can't really tell if it's also glued on or not. That's the big question. Did they glue these suckers together? Another big question that I have is underneath the rubber foot here, on the OGs, there's that debug port. Let me show you guys what that looks like. Here we go. So, if you take the rubber base off of the bottom of your HomePod, this is what it's going to look like. And you've got this proprietary debug connector on the bottom here. And those pins happen to have USB and UART access. So if you check out my website, you'll see the same info I'm about to tell you here now. But essentially what you can do is solder a USB cable onto your HomePod and then plug this into your Mac or PC, and it'll actually recognize that a HomePod device was plugged in. If it's bricked, like the flashing volume buttons, it'll show that this device is in recovery mode, and it actually gives you a button to restore the software. Unfortunately, for whatever reason, when you click that restore button, it seems to try to reach out to Apple and get that firmware, but it is unable to, and you get an error. So, my hope is that there is some way to restore the software if something goes wrong on the new one. I'm also hoping, or I've got a lot of hopes here, but I'm also really hoping that they make parts available through the self-service portal. I'm also hoping that, and it looks like from the X-ray images, that the two subwoofers between the OG and the new one are going to be, like, they'll physically fit. I don't know about the actual connector that plugs it into the amp, but that would be really easy to swap. And I've got plenty of blown subwoofers that I can harvest those cables from to do the swap. But that would breathe a lot of life back into a lot of HomePods too that have blown subwoofers. Unlike a lot of parts that fail, the subwoofer is next to impossible to economically repair when it fails. Where's my sputcher? I think I ordered new ones off Amazon because this one is beat. All these tools that you see us use minus this screwdriver have now seen roughly 400 HomePod repairs by now. And it boggles my mind. I never thought I would have fixed this many by now. Baby's going. She said, hey, leave a like and subscribe so you know when I go live tomorrow at noon to tear down that new HomePod. So I'll do a live stream tomorrow at noon, trying to do the side-by-side comparison and tear it down and whatnot. And then I'll do like a proper recorded video with that footage as well. Maybe plus a little extras. But so that way people don't have to sit there and watch me struggle for a few hours getting this thing open without breaking it. Jojo, you make a good point, but I don't think, unless you know something that I don't, or you have access to info that I don't think we know that for sure. Yes, of course you're right. It's using a fork of tvOS, or it's using a fork of iOS, which is just basically tvOS. But I don't know. Maybe that's just me not wanting to believe, but I just can't really believe that there wasn't a way to use that port to restore the software somehow. Especially with how close it works, and the fact that it recognizes, not like any other hardware, it recognizes specifically that it's the HomePod, and that it's in recovery mode. And actually, if you flip the HomePod upside down and then plug it into your computer and power it on, it'll put it into DFU mode, which I think is even more interesting, that they're using the accelerometer in there to, during the boot up process, like the low level, like we're talking like right when it turns on, it's checking to see if it's flipped around, and it's going to put it into DFU mode. Alberto, not sure how you pronounce that. I'll say your last name, since I think I'll say that better than your first name. Although, if you knew my full last name, it's I've heard plenty of mispronunciations of my own. Well, anyways, they asked, is there any way you can clean the speaker mesh? Yes, there is. So, for light to medium cleaning, you can take a Q-tip with some rubbing alcohol and just douse the stained or dirty area and rub it clean with the Q-tip gently. For medium and larger stains, you can douse a cloth or a rag in rubbing alcohol and do the same thing. Gently scrub the area clean. Be careful when you're doing that you don't scrub too hard, because you'll separate the mesh layers and it'll kind of look funny. So be gentle. Use more alcohol than force. It's that the rubbing alcohol is not going to damage or discolor the mesh at all. And then for the most intense kind of clean, you're going to want to take the mesh off entirely. And I've got a video on my channel on how to do that if you want to know how to. But once you've got the mesh off, you can just bathe the whole thing in a sink full of warm soapy water. Same thing applies though. You just don't want to scrub it too rough and start separating the layers. Oh, we've got one more screw. Glad I caught that before we got there. Wouldn't be the first time we've done it either. Nice. If it doesn't sound like an Xbox 360 when you're opening it up, you're doing it wrong. Ooh, but this one is putting up a bit of a fight. Woohoo! So crunchy. I think that's it. All right. Hey. Yeah. Okay, let's clean up some of that useless glue around this. Yeah, we'll finish that later. Let's get this woofer out, see if it's dead or not. Ah, well, you fix a couple hundred of them and of course you start to make it look easy, mate. Oh. You guys can probably smell that from there. That, my friends, is an absolutely roasted subwoofer. You should not hear anything when I do that. And yet you do. You also hear the baby, but I think the baby smells this too. I don't even want to... Woo! Woo! You ever microwave a VHS tape? Yeah. Alright. Well, they're going to need a new subwoofer. But that's not the only thing going on here. There's usually a reason why the subwoofers have a meltdown like this. They don't usually just do this by themselves. The reason, which is also what you're going to see us find on a few other repairs tonight, is too much DC voltage that the amp is generating and spitting out into the subwoofer. Your audio signal is AC, not DC. Direct current is bad for your analog speaker. Instead of the AC current moving it back and forth equally for every signal it gets, with DC, it's moving it one way or the other and holding it there. So instead of it being able to naturally cool down from the movement and what have you, it's sitting there holding it in one place, putting it under a lot of stress and heat, and that's how it burns itself out. The reason why this amp spits out that DC voltage are the filtering caps on the back side of the amp that go bad over time and allow this to happen. Typically, you end up with death farts before you reach voltages that are going to really wreck your subwoofer, but sometimes it can kind of sneak by just under that death fart threshold and roast your woofer over time like this. So, we've talked enough. Let's continue tearing this down. We need to get to that amplifier so that way we can correct the reason why that happened. And then we can put this together with a fresh subwoofer and we'll be good to go. That's one thing that I'm going to be very curious about with the new HomePod 2 is, did they make any changes to the two main parts of this amp that tend to fail? And that's the filters and that diode. Obviously, you know, it seems like the diode problem for the no power issue was just a bad batch of those diodes. So even if they used the same exact thing, just with a newer diode, it probably wouldn't have the same problem ever again. For the filters, I can't imagine what they would do. They're probably just going to use higher quality filters. I'm guessing maybe they didn't use quality ones the first time around, so the failure rate's not ideal. Maybe they're like doubling up on filters, so that way a set can fail and it would still work fine. Maybe they're doing something else entirely different. And one thing that I noticed from the X-rays is it kind of looked like, come on, focus. It kind of looked like the new HomePod doesn't have these tall electrolytic capacitors that the OG does. So I wonder if that has anything to do with anything. Where do you source parts for subwoofer replacements? Do you buy HomePods for parts or something? That is an excellent question. And you're correct. I buy broken HomePods usually off of eBay. Sometimes Shop Goodwill. Goodwill has an online auction website if you didn't know. It's freaking awesome. I try not to spend more than around, or no more than $100 per broken HomePod, which even then to some people I know it sounds, like a lot. But ever since I started putting my videos and live streams out there, it seems like the prices and availability of broken ones has gone up and down. So, but that's where I get my parts. I buy broken ones and take them apart. So that's one of the reasons why I don't sell parts, because it's already hard and expensive enough for me to get my hands on enough parts to offer repairs, let alone sell parts to other people. Another reason why I don't sell parts is people tend to misdiagnose or break something else along the way, either before or after getting the part they thought they needed. And they end up wasting a lot of their time and money. And they end up taking parts from me that we could have used for other repairs that actually needed it. And it's hard to price the parts reasonably without me losing money again on it. It just wouldn't make sense, and I can't. I'm out here to do what I can, not go broke. So usually people looking for parts, I always suggest buying their own broken HomePods for parts, because not only will their money go a lot farther having a full set of spare parts, but if they ever run into anything else along the way or in the future, they've still got that full set of parts that they can take from. And it's that you just need to get the one HomePod full of parts and you've got everything you need pretty much, whereas you're working with me to buy this part and then you need this other part and that other part. So what can you usually salvage from a typical broken HomePod? So usually most of the HomePods that I see that are being sold broken, they've got two things wrong with them. They either won't power on, or there's usually three things wrong with them. They won't power on, they've got the blinking volume buttons, or they don't have bass. The ones that won't power on are usually just a shorted diode on the amplifier here, which you'll see us repair on probably all of the no power repairs tonight. It's just a diode, and I've also got a video on my channel if you want to watch on how to do that no power repair. But that's usually the case for the no power pods. On rare occasion, it's an issue with the power supply. Even rarer, it's a shorted cap on the logic board, but if you're good at locating shorts, you can find that no problem, and I've got a few videos on that as well. Then you've got the blinking volume buttons ones. So, hold on, let me take a step back. What can you harvest from the broken HomePod with no power? If you don't want to fix it, then you can harvest basically anything other than the part that's causing the no power issue. So usually that's the amp, but it would usually make no sense to not just replace that diode unless you don't have the experience and equipment to do that. So the second most common broken HomePod for sale are the blinking volume buttons ones. That's usually an issue with the logic board, either bricked software or the failing of the CPU or NAND or its solder joints. I don't repair those, and I don't offer replacements. So if you buy a blinking volume buttons HomePod for parts, you can basically use everything except the logic board. Even then, if you're into doing repairs on logic boards, the bricked ones obviously still have plenty of components on them that are still good to reuse. And then you've got the third most common broken HomePod for sale. I might have to close the door unless that's bugging you guys. If anybody's bothered by that, just let me know. I'll close the door. But anyways, the third most common one are the ones with no base. In those cases, usually it's a 50-50 split between an issue with the amp and an issue with the subwoofer speaker, like what we just saw a few minutes ago with Marco's here. Usually, and like I was saying here with Marco's again, if the bass speaker is dead, there's a reason why, and that usually comes from an issue with the amp. So with those, if you don't want to do any repairs, you can probably just get the logic board, cosmetic pieces, and maybe a few other bits, but your amp is no good unless you do fixes for it, and same with the subwoofer more often than not. All right, so let's get this put together really quick on the bench here so we can confirm what we suspect is going on here, which is that DC offset that this thing is spitting out because of those bad filters. Oh my god, is that Miku? How you doing? Yeah, we've been streaming these things for like a year, almost a year now. I bet you also didn't know I had a kid. Her name is Chell. And she's, well, she's usually pretty well behaved, but she's been ramping up on the crying. She's hitting that 2-month mark. But, you know, all things considered, so far, raising her, it's been an absolute joy, and it's been, I wouldn't say a lot easier, but it's been a little easier than what a lot of people tried to prepare us for. But we're not almost 2 months into it, so we'll see. Maybe we're talking too soon. She's going. She's making mom work though. Yeah, I'm gonna make her help me with HomePod repairs as soon as she gets old enough. She can start with emails and then work up to helping me take them apart and put them together. Alright, so here on our multimeter, actually I'll show you really quick how we're testing this. So, obviously we've got the amplifier and the power supply from Marco's HomePod. That's where the problem's coming from. And then it's got power coming into it. It's connected to a logic board and display, so we can obviously power it on and test it. And then it's also got a connection to our subwoofer over here. The subwoofer is also connected to our multimeter over here. And our multimeter is set to DC mode. So basically what we're doing is we're measuring how much DC voltage the subwoofer is seeing from the amplifier, which tells us how bad our filtering caps are. And all we really need to see is whether our DC offset or DC voltage is more than 50 millivolts. It's a small number, but it matters. So anything more than 50 millivolts is going to be a problem, considered by many in the audio industry. Really, you're not going to start causing damage until you start hitting like 100 millivolts or more. But we repair and replace those caps if we see anything more than 50 millivolts. That it's now reached 1 volt DC, so no wonder the subwoofer cooked itself over time, or it's pretty severe. And once you start reaching 2 to 3 volts DC, you would actually hear a death fart. So one thing that we can do to reproduce that death fart on demand is by warming up the board. So let's go ahead and do that. watch the number on the meter rise drastically as we heat it up. You see how fast that goes up? This is going to scare the shit out of me as soon as it does it. It does every time. Oh wow, it's not even going to fart. Alright, I'm not going to put the subwoofer through any more trauma than that. Wow. Amazing. Well, we've confirmed what's wrong. Let's go ahead and fix that now. So, the reason why DC voltage causes death farts is the amp actually sees the DC voltage, and once it exceeds I don't know the exact number, but it seems to be somewhere around 3 to 6 volts. It'll produce that death fart sound and restart in an attempt to cool down and sort of save itself. It's interesting that the death fart behavior is actually like a programmed behavior of the amplifier. It's kind of like saying, "Please help me, please save me. I'm dying. I'm killing myself. I'm roasting myself from the inside." So let's get up close. Let's get focused. Here's the capacitors that are supposed to filter that DC voltage from the audio signal before it passes through the amp and into the subwoofer. As these go bad over time, they allow more DC voltage through, which gets amped up and causes havoc. So we're going to get these replaced, and that should bring our DC offset under 50 millivolts. And while we're in here, we're going to replace the Schottky barrier diode over here. This has nothing to do with the issue at hand, but this is the part that fails the most often and causes no power issues. Like I was saying earlier, it seems like there was only a bad batch of these, since only a certain date code is failing. This one says 1752K on it, so that's a little newer than what we see normally failing. But nonetheless, we're going to replace that anyways, not before we get these caps. So here we go. But yeah, DC voltage in places that DC voltage shouldn't be is going to cause problems. The amplifier doesn't care what you're giving it. Its sole purpose is to amplify anything that it's been given. So normally it expects AC, and that's what it's going to amplify. But when it gets DC voltage, it's going to amplify that as well. So any DC voltage that makes its way through these filters here is just going to be made worse by this amp before it makes its way to the subwoofer. That also means a whole bunch of parts on the amp and the subwoofer are going to start seeing a lot more DC voltage than they were supposed to originally see, which is why you see parts start to fail when this gets worse. Alright, so we got the old caps off. We put some flux on there. And we are now going to put some fresh solder on those pads. So that way our... Oh, damn, my soldering iron was off. We gotta wait for that to warm up now. We want to put fresh solder on those pads so that way our new capacitors have the best chance possible of staying on the board and having a good quality connection and preventing this problem from creeping up again. And we're also using, we're not using super low melt temperature solder, but we are using solder that melts at around 250 to 300 degrees Celsius. So that way we don't have to put our new capacitors under so much heat for as long as it would take for normal solder. I feel like that's going to give them a longer lifespan as opposed to sitting there and baking the shit out of them, while also using low melt solder that's not too low melt, that's going to be too brittle and crack and break. So it's a nice little medium between low melt and durability. And you'll also notice that I'm not cleaning the old solder off of those pads. That's on purpose. I want to mix a little bit of that stuff together so that way we bring up the melting point of our low melt up just a little bit more and give it just a little more strength than just by itself. None of this is absolutely necessary. This is just what I do that works best for me. You do whatever find works best for you. If you want to go through the process of cleaning the pads and putting fresh, regular solder on there, go for it. But at the end of the day, if you do what you're doing right, then your results will be the same. All right, Louis Rossman, let's see you do this. 4 caps at once. Sounds like she's calmed down a little bit for now. I am having a heck of a time with this sticking to my tweezers. Come on, boy. There we go. Yeah, I'll be surprised if I get all 4 of these on in one go. But let's give it a shot. Oh, I didn't even touch that one. That thing just jumped around like a bean. Amazing. Oh. And then I had to go and be a goofball. There we go. Oh, that looks fantastic. All right, let's take care of this diode. I need a telescope. I need a microscope. You're right. But if when I get a microscope, I want to get a really nice microscope. I don't want to cheap out and get a sub $300 microscope. I want to get a really nice one with a great image output on it that I can have up on a dedicated monitor. But you're right. I do need to get my hands on one. I recently blew my budget on a couple of new HomePods though, so it might have to wait a little longer. I'm gonna shut the door really quick. There we go. It's not perfect, but it will help a lot. I feel sorry for her. I can't help them. I'm just sitting here fixing stuff. Check my YouTube channel for when we'll tear it down. I don't have a vent hood, but I've got a HEPA filter right here, right above the workstation here, that sucks all the air through. You can't even hear it going at low speed. Maybe we'll turn it up a little bit so we don't have to hear the poor little baby. Nope, still here, baby. I'm sorry, baby. Okay. If we've done everything correctly, let's let this cool off for just a second, and then we will power it on and confirm that our issue is gone. Then we'll put this together with a fresh subwoofer. Move on to the next one. Come on. Okay. And we also want to make sure, yep, it's nice and cool. Yeah, I'll believe it when I hear it. That's what I'm saying. I'll believe it sounds better when I hear it myself. Okay. Oh, no, yep, we've got everything plugged in. Cool. So it's powering on still. That's always a good sign. And our offset is, wow. Is it going to stay at 0 millivolts? It's probably going to go 1, 2, 3 millivolts maybe. 2, 3. All right. Well, I'll buy that. That is a significant improvement from the 1 volt that we saw before we started heating it up. And with only a few millivolts of offset, far below the 50 or a couple hundred millivolts that would cause any damage, I feel okay to put this back together with a new subwoofer without worrying about it blowing up on us in a few more months, or heck, even years. I do guarantee all of my US repairs with a, I call it 6 to 12 warranty. So for the first 6 months, if you have any sound or power issues, I'll cover shipping and repairs both ways and fix it up again for you. After those first 6 months, up to a year, give or take, you know, like a month, I'll give a grace period, but up to a year, I'll cover the repairs Shut up. I'll cover the repairs if you cover shipping. So, the only time I've had somebody need to use their warranty is when a logic board had bricked itself. And that is typically not even something that I would, there's nothing I can do for a bricked HomePod. It bricked itself. There's no way to fix it, and because there's no way to fix it, I don't have good logic boards to fix it. So, but anything else that may have been a fault of my repair, or any parts that I replace, those are guaranteed. And that's a hell of a lot more than what Apple gives you when you pay them $300 for an out-of-warranty replacement, which is like a 30 to 90 day warranty or something like that. It's dumb. I mean, at that point, you're basically just buying the thing off of them again and trading the old one in for no value. And they're going to sit there and tell you that they can only guarantee it's going to work for you for the next 30 to 90 days. I think that's a kick in the pants. Oh, I saw somebody on Reddit speculating the reason why they discontinued the OG HomePod so early was they realized that the original hardware wasn't going to support Matter and all the new smart home stuff that they wanted to cram into the new HomePod. So they quickly discontinued it and redesigned it internally to not only reduce the cost a little bit and give themselves better profit margins, because honestly, the profit margins of the original one, not to mention just the cost to manufacture one, was $250 per unit for Apple to manufacture. So they didn't have a lot of room to make money on them. I'm curious how much that is with the new one. But they were speculating on Reddit that they redesigned it to mainly be lower cost and support Matter. Alright, here's another subwoofer. This one looks much better, smells a lot better, and feels nice and smooth. So this will be perfect to pop in here. Let's get those grommets back on. I'm gonna mute the microphone for a few minutes until she calms down. Say hi, Chell. You being a big grumper? You doing alright? You giving Mom a hard time? Yeah. I know. Life is hard, isn't it? Wait until you gotta pay your taxes. Yeah. That's bright, isn't it? You got hair in your mouth, too. I'm gonna get it. Hair be gone. Yeah. Alright, you wanna go back to Mom? No? You wanna stay here and make me take forever fixing HomePods? Alright. Let's go back to Mom. Alright. Well, I might have to fix these HomePods tomorrow, folks, because kiddo here is just not having it. And I do not want to keep Mom up too late, because if I keep Mom up too late, then that also means that I gotta stay up too late and everybody loses sleep, everybody has a bad time. And nobody wants that. So I think we are going to have to unfortunately end the stream here and try and have another stream early tomorrow morning to catch up. What do you think, Chell? What do you think? Yeah. Alright, folks. Well, I apologize to disappoint, but we're going to end it here. Tomorrow morning, I will go ahead and set up another stream and we will wrap these up. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave it down below. If you're looking for more info, hop over to the website, nixfix.com, where I've got plenty of info to fix it yourself, or reach out to me so you can send it in to be fixed here on the channel. Whenever Chell lets me. Yeah. In any case, I hope you all enjoyed, and I will catch you, hopefully, tomorrow morning. If not, then I will see you guys tomorrow at noon for the teardown and comparison of the brand new HomePod. So, we'll catch you nerds and turds in the next one. Goodbye!